So I'm going to explain one more basic economic concept, and then I'll get into some more specifics. So anyways, down here we have this chart. We have tax rate on the x-axis, and we have tax revenue on the y-axis. And so pretty much what most people think is when the government taxes people more, the government will bring in more revenue. Does that make sense to everyone? So essentially, people think that this line should look something like this. You know, if the tax rate is 0, there'll be no tax revenue, and the more you tax the country, the more federal tax revenue the country will bring in. That is not true. That is not true at all. So I have to introduce this economic concept to you guys. Sorry. And it is called the Laffer Curve, actually. So essentially what this means is that there is a point on this chart where tax revenue will not go up if the tax rate goes up. Let me explain. Okay, so I just showed you what most people think would happen once the taxes are raised. Here's what actually should happen when taxes are raised. Here's what should happen. It goes like this. Okay? Does anyone know why? Sorry, that's a little bit of a bad curve there, but anyone know why that is? I'll give you an example here. So let's just say, what's the tax rate now for the US? It's average 25%, right? So it's somewhere around here. And so essentially, if you raise taxes, what happens? What's going to happen? Corporations are going to move their money overseas. People are going to not work as hard because they're not keeping as much money as they want. People are not going to open up as many businesses because they're not going to get as much as a return. They don't want to work hard. So essentially, think of it this way. Let's just say someone wants to put the tax rate at 90%. Let's just say you're going trick-or-treating. Okay, you're going trick-or-treating. And before you go out, your parents say, okay, I want to take 5% of your candy at the end of the night, and that's it. And that's it. Would you still go out trick-or-treating if your parents were to take away 5% of the candy? Probably, right? But if they said, okay, well, I'm going to take away 90% of your candy at the end of the night, and essentially no matter what happens, you're only going to end up with 5 chocolate bars. Would you still go out trick-or-treating? No, probably not, because if I go out for 2 hours and get 100 chocolate bars, I'm only going to keep 5. That's essentially what happens with the high tax rate. It's trying to equalize society in a way. In a way, that's trying to explain it like that. So, anyways, so this brings up the point: what is the optimal tax rate? Okay, this is called the Laffer Curve, and this isn't the optimal tax rate. It's not 50%. It is not 50%. In order to maximize tax revenue, there was a study done at the University of California 2 years ago, I believe, where they did a meta-analysis of the history of the American economy and the world economy. And essentially, to maximize federal tax revenue, the ideal tax rate looks kind of like this. And so it is actually 33%. That is the ideal tax amount for the United States of America, according to this one study. Now, in the past, people thought it was 70%. If you ask your parents, anyone who took economics in the 70s or 80s, the curve is pretty much the exact opposite. So it should have been over here. But after Ronald Reagan came into office, it kind of changed. So anyway, so why does having a lower tax rate increase revenue for the government? Because people want to work harder, they want to earn more money, and people will bring money to the United States. So I'm going to get to that a little bit later. You know, you guys have a United States. I'm in Canada right now. You guys have a big problem with your own corporations holding their money in different countries and paying different countries, right? So if we were to lower tax rates, they would want to bring money back into the country. And so the total pool of the tax revenue would increase, even though the tax rate would be lower. Does that make any sense? I'm trying to explain this as simple as I can. So sometimes having a lower tax rate can increase tax revenue. Quite interesting. So this is called the Laffer Curve, and I'm going to refer to it a lot during this talk I'm going to give here. All right, so we got the basics out of the way. So I'm going to just go ahead and erase this. So that's called the Laffer Curve. Remember that. And the ideal tax rate is supposed to be 33%. It might be a little bit lower than that. Some people think it's actually 20%, keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. So we're going to erase this. What do you think the ideal tax rate is? Like, seriously, leave a comment on Periscope and on YouTube right now. What do you think the ideal tax rate is for the average person and for the richest? I'm going to talk a little bit about the tax rates for Trump and Bernie Sanders, like what their plan is next and how that will affect the economy. I just needed to get these concepts out of the way because they're very, very important. That's actually, this Laffer curve is essentially what Ronald Reagan based his tax cuts on. That lowering taxes will be better for the overall economy. And in a way, he was right. It did create a temporarily better global economy, but it wasn't necessarily better for the people. So it's kind of this trade-off you get here, which I'll explain right now.